Right. Are you familiar with the Kenyan Dream? Well, let me even ask you this. Are you living the Kenyan Dream? Well, it goes like this. Go to a good school, get a good job, acquire the latest car, buy a house or build one in a swanky suburb, fly out for a holiday once every year, and hang up the gloves on the slopes of Mount Kenya or along the white sandy beaches of the Kenyan coastline. But why is it too expensive to acquire a house in Kenya? I posed this question to George Mboro. He's a real estate expert and also the managing director of Mesa Homes Africa. And he gave me the following response during our area engagement. Listen. Owning a home in Kenya is considered to be a dream come true for many people. But of course, we all know the challenges, that come with these, from high cost of lending to high cost of material, as well as, collateral that is demanded by lending institutions. There has been concerted efforts by both the private and the public sector to try and bring this down in a bid to make housing affordable. Well, joining us to discuss this issue plus more is George Mboro. He's the managing director of Mesa Africa Homes. Thank you very much indeed, George, for joining us here.
Thank you.
Help us understand this. Why is it, first of all, very hard to own a house in Kenya or a home in Kenya?
Yeah, thank you very much. And as you have correctly said, the interest rates when you are being given a loan and other factors, cost of land, cost of construction materials, and having the time to oversee construction. These are some of the hindrances that people have experienced. People who have the desires to own homes, you find that you want to have a home which is affordable, but you do the calculation, you buy land, you buy materials, oversee the construction, and the loan, you pay interest. At the end of the day, something that you would have used very little money, you find you have used more than 3 times the amount of money you had initially planned for or budgeted for. Yeah, so those factors really affect the cost of houses. And it's a challenge because everybody needs to have shelter, because in the 3 basic needs we have food, we have clothing, and we have shelter, and shelter is basically houses. So it is something that is a basic need. But because of the constraints that I have put across, and of course others, you find that it is not as easy as maybe we would have wanted. Yeah.
You see, when you look at home ownership, especially in the urban areas in Kenya, I mean, it currently stands at about 24% of the urban population. This, of course, does not compare good with South Africa. Whereby, this rate would be about 54–55%. And we have seen a lot of efforts, being put by the government to try and suppress the cost of owning a house in this country. Are you convinced that the measures that the government is putting in place will, in the long run, bring down the cost of houses?
Yeah, thank you very much. As you have said, according to the statistics, houses are needed in big numbers, because currently we have a deficit of 2 million houses in the urban areas, and every year, because of the increase in population, there's 200,000 more houses that are needed.
That are needed every year?
Every year. So the deficit...
And this is on top of the 2 million deficit?
Yeah, on top of the 2 million. So the deficit continues to increase as the population grows, and as people move from the rural areas and they migrate to the urban areas to look for greener pastures, to look for jobs. So there is need, and we want to congratulate the government, because one thing with the big agenda 4, one of the big 4 agendas, being housing, it has brought affordability of houses as a topic, and now people are talking about affordable houses, because the government has seen that it is something that needs to be looked at, and it's a problem that needs a solution, and that is why we have seen the government involving itself in encouraging, like structuring of mortgage. You hear that you can be given a mortgage, and they're also reducing the interest 7%. People being given pension 40% even before they go into retirement. We have seen the government actively getting involved in giving out of titles. We have seen the government being involved in the affordable housing and actually constructing. And all these efforts are to try and ensure that the deficit that we have as a country is covered. So I would say that the effort is good, because now this is a topic that people are talking about and the government is also supporting. But we would also urge the government even to work even more, especially to encourage the private developers, because the government on its own, with all the other job that it is doing, it's not possible to cover the deficit on its own. With the affordable housing agenda, affordable housing by the government, it's good, but it's not enough because the deficit is so big. And even the government had said it would do 500 units. You see, out of the 2 million deficit that we have already, there's also already a shortfall of 1.5, and the deficit continues to increase. So the government, what I would urge the government to do is to also empower the private developers. There are people like us, Mesa Africa Homes Limited, and we understand the problem that is there.
And how will they be empowered?
Yeah, it's very easy, because when the government supports an initiative, it's very highly likely that the wananchi will also take it up, because it's like a policy which the government is encouraging. So, for example, if the government can say, we are supporting Mesa Africa Homes Limited with what it is doing, and we encourage it to continue, and maybe they can go the extra mile. You know, the government owns land, the biggest land, and for us, like Mesa Africa Homes Limited, one of our biggest cost is acquiring land. So if we can be given that land, and we actually will pay later, and also at a subsidized price, and we are given all the other necessary approvals by the government, we are supported. I'm sure we would, if now we are doing 100 units per month, we would be in a position to do even 1,000 and even more, because all we need is to increase the workforce and build on our capacity.
And let's for a moment imagine that the government has provided land for private sector to put up affordable homes. A unit that currently goes for about 4.5 to 5 million shillings will come down by what margin?
The cost of land takes for about 30%. So if you are to remove 30% of the cost of that unit, so if you are working with the 4.5, if you do 30% of that, you'll find that it's roughly maybe around 1 million, 1.5. So if you remove that one, the house will come to, if at all you are not going to pay for that land, it will come to 3 million. If you are going to pay for that land at a subsidized price, let's say 500, then you will reduce it to 3.5.
3.5. And of course, that is a substantial reduction in terms of cost. You were talking about government venturing into the affordable housing space, and we know there are multiple projects that are currently undergoing. And one of them is the Park Road project, affordable housing project here in Nairobi, whereby a 3-bedroom unit is going for about 3 million shillings, and a 2-bedroom unit about 2.5. In a country where less than 100,000 people earn above $1 million, Bob, can this be classified as affordable?
You will find that what happens in economics, if you cater for the need of maybe a certain class, automatically by default you will also cater for the other problem. I'll give you an example. If people who can afford the 3.5, you have said, or 2.5, and they get those houses, you will find that those are the people who are living in the suburb of Nairobi, the areas in Umoja, Donholm, and what have you. Those people now will stop paying the rent because now they have gotten their own homes. What will happen to the demand of the houses that they were renting? The demand will be less, isn't it? Because now, and there will be more supply. By default, there will be, the price will regulate itself. You will find that a house that used to be paid 20,000 in Donholm will automatically come down to, let's say, 10,000. And what that means, somebody who was living, let's say, in Dandora, paying a house 10,000 will move to don't know, isn't it? The same case will apply. Somebody who now is living in Dandora, the house they were paying 10,000 will come to 5,000. And somebody who was living in Korogosho, in Amabati area, will move to, will upgrade.
So there will be multiplying effect.
Yeah, so the ripple effect is what matters. Because you may not remove the person who's living in the Mabati, maybe they pay 500 shilling per month to the houses. But when you create more supply, also price stabilizes.
Look, there is also an attempt by both the government and the lending institutions to try and push up the rate of mortgage uptake in this country, and we know for the longest time, taking up a mortgage in this country is quite an expensive undertaking because of the upfront deposit that you have to pay, which is about 30%.
Sure.
Is it 30% of the total amount? And of course, the collateral that is needed, plus the paperwork that you have to do in order to secure that facility. Are you convinced that what we are doing is the right thing? For example, establishing the Kenya refinancing mortgage company.
Sure.
Is that a step in the right direction?
That one is a good step. It's a good start, but that is not the end. Because like for us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, what we do, and actually what the government is doing is off-plan. And off-plan means that you are buying something that is at the design stage. It is not something that has been put up. So what we are doing, the government is collecting resources from the people to do the construction, and by the end of the day you get your house. The same case as we are doing. We are collecting customers' deposits to put them into construction. You get? And by doing that, we are cutting on cost. And now what the government is doing, the refinancing loans, is something good, but now they also need to look at the other part. Because when you look at the terms and conditions, they mostly look at a ready house, a complete house. Because you will be told, come with the title, come with the everything, like we want to value the house. There are all those terms and conditions, which you find that with the mode of construction that we are doing, the government is doing, is not being catered by the refinanced mortgaging and the loans. So they also need to go the extra mile, reduce on the terms and conditions, the paperwork. Understand that this is somebody who wants to invest in an off-plan concept so that they get the house at almost the cost. They don't need to pay so much, because you find a ready house. That house is being sold, let's say 7 million. The cost of that house is 3.5. So already the person who constructed, they are taking 3.5 as a profit, which is 100%. And that person who is being sold to 7 million will pay the extra 3.5, which is a return on investment of the person who had initially invested, and they will also pay the interest, the loan, the mortgage interest, the loan. So you find that the burden to that person is so high. So we need to look at the terms and conditions. Let us finance somebody who is also doing off-plan. And this can be done very easily, because when you are getting yourself, like for example, you come to us, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited, we have the terms and conditions that we also, like a contract, we get to a contract. The government can say that that contract is binding. If that person has been financed to come and buy that house, it's now upon you to make sure that you deliver that house. It is made mandatory. It's a mandate. You're mandated. This somebody has been facilitated to come and purchase your house at, let's say, Mrs. Africa Homes Limited. Now it's also upon you to deliver. This person has been financed. They understood that the house is not ready. The terms were somehow lenient. So also the developer or the government also make sure the person who is delivering, they deliver, and they also deliver on time.
Look, I mean, less than 10 years ago, the housing market was majorly dominated in what you would call the swanky suburbs of, the capital of Nairobi and Mombasa.
Sure.
And you're talking about, areas like Kileleshwa, Lavington and so much. But we have seen a concerted effort, even by the private sector, to try and move out of these areas to other areas, to the peri-urban areas of this republic. Is this somehow offering any relief to home buyers?
Yeah, you notice that when you look at the cost of land in the areas you have mentioned, like Leleshwa, Runda, Mudaiga, and for one, before you do the construction in those areas, they are so much regulated. There are some, you can't put up a height at all building. You find that the cost of land there is very high, because I think even the initial planning was to be an affluent area. It is an area whereby not so many people are needed. But you find that when now we are moving to the outer parts of town, for one, you find the cost of land there is friendly. It's not as expensive. You also find that in case you need to put up a building, let's say an apartment, you can be allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So there are so many advantages, and by that you're able to help somebody who otherwise would not have managed to get that house. You find that in the earlier years, for somebody to dream of owning a home, you had to have a very big salary, or you have saved up to 10 million, or you can be given a loan of up to 10 million for you to imagine of owning a 3-bedroom house.
And so this is somehow, relieving the pressure of the capital city.
Yeah, it's a relief to the capital city, and it's a relief because now people can dream of owning a home even before you retire, before you make so much money, before you get a very huge salary. Yeah, so it's a relief.
And of course, I mean, as the old saying goes, where there are opportunities, there are challenges. Sure. We have also seen a mushrooming of real estate companies, that have fleeced very innocent people. They promise so much, they deliver nothing. Sure. This is somehow also eroding the confidence of buyers, into, the dream of owning a house. Yeah. How do we ensure that this kind of a problem is dealt with?
Yeah. So that is a very big problem, and so many people actually have gone into depression, because you find that some of our customers, they are people who have received pension, or they have been given loans, and you are servicing a loan, you expected to have a home, but you are not getting it. So you find that this is a need, that this is a serious challenge, and it can be addressed simply by ensuring that the contract that the customer and the developer get into is taken to be something very serious. And if it is maybe the courts, if it's the courts, you had entered into an agreement with the customer to deliver this and this house within this and this time. If you don't do that, in the agreement there are terms and conditions. Maybe there is a penalty. Return the money to the customer with some sort of interest, because maybe they are going to pay a loan. So return the money and also pay them an interest if you are unable, because in an agreement there are terms and conditions. If you don't meet the conditions, there are repercussions. Yeah, so the government needs to ensure that those contracts that the home buyers and the developers get into, they are taken to be something serious.
And honestly speaking, I mean, there are companies that are genuinely getting into genuine problems. Well, of course, they are the unscrupulous people who have taken advantage of this, people who want to buy homes. But we know of companies, that started, genuinely, and they have been in business, but because of one or two challenges, they go into difficulties of, even completing some of these units. What are some of these challenges, that are coming into the way of real estate developers that we are having an upsurge in number of unfinished projects?
Sure. You realize that some of the developers, there are people who are there in business, and their aim is to make profits and to have money. But sometimes you find that they do not understand very well that the money that the customers are paying is not their money. It is customer deposit. They are just doing the customer collection. They are collecting the deposit. And personally, I'm an accountant, and you understand that in accounting, you realize profit after you have completed the work. So those developers, they take the money, they assume that is their money, and that is customers' deposits. It's not their It's not their profit. The profit they will realize upon delivering of the project. So I think also some of these developers, they also need to, they are very good in marketing, they are very good in advertising, but they also need to go the extra mile and understand the economics, the accounting aspect. They understand very well. Yes, you have collected 10 million or 100 million. That money, you'll only realize your profit once you have completed the project and you have handed over to the home buyers. The difference that you get, that is your profit. Enjoy that money. Don't enjoy the money before you deliver. If they understand that concept, you'll hear no customers complaining. You'll hear no companies going down because of non-delivery.
Yeah. And when you look at counties, I mean, they're also expected to be the drivers, the new drivers of the Kenyan economy. Yeah. How comes we're not having, counties launching big housing projects, to alleviate the suffering of their constituents?
Yeah. You will realize that counties, there has been the devolved functions, and we have counties, and it was passed in the 2010 constitution. But you realize that we have taken much time to appreciate the effects and the devolved functions of the counties, and you'll appreciate that even the devolved government, they are actually learning what they should do. They're also learning. So I should encourage even the counties. Let's not take so much time to appreciate devolved functions and the work that we need to do and to help and elevate some of our people from poverty. It's a call to the counties to now appreciate we have devolved government, we have devolved functions. Let's take up, like housing, let's encourage people to own houses, because owning a house is one of the things that will elevate poverty.
And also in a country whereby, there is a whole parastatal whose mandate is to help in the construction of houses in this country. How comes somehow they have taken, the backstage when the clarion call has been to ensure there is affordable housing, for Kenyans?
You'll appreciate that one of the biggest problems we have with parastatals and with the actually government institutions is bureaucracy. And some of the people who get into those offices, they get there with very, very enthusiastic, with high expectations. But once they get there, they try, but they understand. They maybe are told, I don't know what happens. They are told not too fast. These are how things are done here. Slowly by slowly.
There's a lot of
bureaucracy
and bureaucracy.
Yeah, so they also they adopt to the new changes, and things continue as normal, the old way. Yeah, so nothing new happens. So the old way of no change, no new houses continues, which is very unfortunate. Yeah, because people who are coming in, they need to. There needs to be a change. Yeah.
George, as we wind up our interview, if you were in a position to advise the government, or if you're in a position to drive policy change in this country, and how the whole system of housing is managed, what would you do differently?
Yeah, what I would do differently, I would first of all appreciate what the private sector is doing. And for one, because it is doing something, we, like Mesa Africa Homes Limited being a good example, and also appreciate their challenges that have been there. And if we appreciate one, there's something positive, then we address the negatives. I'm sure we can be able to solve the problem of affordable housing. And we partner together, the government, the private sector, and the private sector that is doing well. How have they done it? We can tap, like for example, as Mesa Africa Homes Limited, we are willing to lend what has led to our success, where we need to be assisted, we also appreciate the assistance. Yeah, and by so doing, we will ensure that the problem of affordable housing is resolved once and for all.
Very well.
Yeah.
George, thank you so very much indeed for finding time to be with us and sharing with us your insights.
Thank you very much.